Hello everybody, it is Steve with SBL Games. Thanks for tuning in today. Today we're going to tackle a tutorial for a PS4 Pro. It is a tutorial for those that are skilled enough to follow. Either way, if you follow along, you do so at your own risk. If at any point you feel this is beyond your skill set, immediately stop what you're doing. Contact your local licensed reputable technician and have them take things from there. But anyhow, moving forward, so in order to do this job, we are going to need an old toothbrush, a T8 driver, and a 00 Phillips head screwdriver. Now, the first things we're going to need to do is we're going to need to pop the corners here, and then this whole piece will pull up and off. We'll set that to the side. We could put our screws and stuff in there. Now from there, you're going to need to get the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws removed. Now something you will want to address is along the edge here. You want to hit that with your toothbrush. You got to really work it in until all these goopies are removed. See that big old chunk that came out. And just hit the edges, and then we'll move into the main unit here in a moment. And before we get too far in, one thing I almost forgot to mention, which is very important, we will need thermal compound as well. We're going to be replacing our thermal compound as well. Another thing you'll want to do is take your toothbrush and hit the top of this fan. We're going to be removing it and cleaning it much better, but this is just to get the process started, get some chunkies out of there. Alright, so now that we got the ridges on both sides cleaned, we'll need to remove these 2 black screws, one there. Then we could get this bottom housing off. It pulls off similar to the top housing. You could also remove this hard drive cover. It just pulls up and off. And then there's a screw here you'll need to remove, and then you could pull out the entire hard drive. Then you could remove that bottom housing. There's also one important screw right there you'll need to get to be sure to remove. So now, just like how we did with the top housing, we'll pry in these corners. Could use our toothbrush to pry in those corners, pop it up, slide it off, just like the top housing. Alright, so now once on the inside, we're going to use our Phillips screwdriver on all these little black screws, and our T8 driver on all these silver screws. We'll need to unplug these antennas. We'll need to unplug these cables. Most of them just pull out. You'll see the ones like this one though, right here, has a clasp. I use my fingernail to gently pop that up and then pull the cable out. Once all this stuff's disconnected, don't forget that fan cable over here, by the way. But once all these things are disconnected, you could pull the cable right here, unroute it from that. You could take pictures if you want to remember where it goes. But once that's all disconnected, this heat shield will pull off. And then we'll be able to get to the X-clamp. So 2 quick things I wanted to mention. The first one is use extra caution removing these cables. I use my fingernail to kind of gently pop them off, because these can and will rip off the board, clean off the board, or you could rip the heads off of these antennas. Either way, it's not fun for me to fix. I can fix it, but please don't do that to where I have to fix it. The other thing is we're not going to quite remove this heat shield yet. We need to remove the power supply first. In order to do that, we'll need to remove these screws and these screws. So those 2 and those 2. Then we could flip it over and get the power supply out. Then we could come back and get the rest of these screws and pull that whole heat shield off. Now, as far as the power supply goes, you must use extreme caution. You're going to be pulling up and out, up and out. However, be very careful because there's that cable still connected. You don't want to rip that off the board. Again, I could fix it in most cases, but we don't want to do that to ourselves. It'll increase the cost for you, and it's a pain in the butt for me. We don't want to do that. Alright, and then now with the power supply out, we flip it over, we could get that heat shield off. It'll just pull up and off. And then we will then need to disconnect all these freaking lighting. We need to remove all these screws to get to the APU clamp and get that off. The APU clamp is going to be 4 screws. We'll need to remove those 4 screws, then we can remove the APU clamp. Now with the APU clamp removed, the main board will pull up and out. We are going to need to change the thermal compound. We'll also need to remove the thermal compound from there. And then we're almost to the fun part where one of the main causes of the overheating could be addressed at this point. So now that we got the heatsink cleaned off, the APU cleaned off, we could then remove the 1, 2 screws right there, and then this whole piece will pull up and out. This heat shield will pull up and out along with the heatsink, and that's what we need to clean out. So I pulled the heat shield and heatsink assembly out. We'll need to clean out that fan and everything, but first we'll need to clean the actual heatsink out. Normally it's a lot more packed. You see how it looks in that corner there? Normally the whole freaking thing looks like that. I could pull it off. It's like a 1/4-inch rug that peels off. But luckily this one isn't that dirty. But we'll go ahead and clean that up, and then we could address the fan on the inside. Get that chassis cleaned up as well. And then we're pretty much done. We'll have to put the compound in upon reassembly, but that's pretty much it, everyone. Now, in order to get the fan off, you need to remove the 2 screws that have arrows pointing at them. Then the whole fan just pulls up and out. You will need to clean this fan with your toothbrush really well. Or I like to... You could use canned air. I just blow on it with my mouth. But yeah, you want to clean that out. Then you'll want to clean out the chassis. And then when you're reassembling, we'll need to add the compound, which I'll show you in just a moment here. Now, once your fan's been thoroughly cleaned, before you reinstall it, give it a good spin. It should spin for a few seconds and then stop. If it spins for like half a second, then comes to an immediate stop, anything like that, then your fan is shot and you'll need to replace that as well. If you're doing this for a client, you'll need to update your client. If it's for yourself, you'll just need to hop on eBay or whatever and order that replacement fan so you could get it replaced. Alright, so we got our compound on. We put our 2 screws back to get that put in. We could then put our main board back into place. It'll go in and then down. Next, you'll need to plug in your fan and all the other cables. So there's that one, there's these over here, and then there's the cables. But don't do the cables yet. Just do the ribbon cables and the fan for now. I'll show you why in just a moment. Alright, so now that all those are in place, we can put the APU clamp back into place. I like to bend it. You don't have to do that if it makes you uncomfortable, but it just puts a little extra pressure on the heatsink to get nice, good cooling. It doesn't hurt anything. If it's too much, it will literally unbend itself a little bit. You will want to be extremely careful while installing the APU. You do not want your screwdriver to come loose and drag on the board and break traces and cause damage. It's, again, one of those situations I could usually fix, but the price skyrockets, so we don't want that. But once we get the APU clamp in place, we could put the APU heat shield over it. Then all those little black screws will go in. And then we could move forward with putting the heat shield in place. Alright, so now that the heat shield is in place, we'll obviously need to put in all the screws that we took out. And then more importantly, we could now route and connect these cables. And in case you forgot, don't remember, or didn't take pictures, this is how it's supposed to route. The black cable goes like that, then in those little groove holder things, then to here. This white cable is under all that and then comes up through here. And it's labeled W for white, B for black, and the little square. I don't know why this one has a F, but this one is going to be this cable. Goes under this and connects to there. Just definitely use extreme caution. They're very easy to break and or damage. Alright, so back on this other side, we'll need to put the power supply in. We gotta plug it in and then put it in. And then we could put all the screws back in place. So there's with all the screws back into place. Now we could put this top housing cover on because we won't need to go anywhere near there again. And now the fan is all clean too, by the way. Alright, now back on the other side, we need to put that screw and that screw back to secure the PSU. And then we could put the final cover on, slide the hard drive into place, bolt that in, and we are done. Alright, so once we get the hard drive in place, the screw goes there, cover goes boom, bam. Then there's 1, 2, and 3 screws. And that's it, we're done. Thank you for following along if you did. If not, thanks for watching. Be sure to smash that like button, drop a comment, and if you like what you see, be sure to subscribe. Steve with SBL Games, signing out.